Alrighty, we are doing something a little bit different today. We're not going to look at any code, it's just a new concept. Today we're going to be talking about a thing called 2D arrays or 2D lists. And this kind of works it's just an organizational concept. Every programming language will have some version of this, some way to do it. But before we get into the syntax and the actual language, let's just talk about it. So in our last lesson, we saw how to do list of multiples, which I learned while recording the solution for it, that it should have been named list of factors. Sure, sorry, fine. And the way that program worked is you didn't put a number, something like 12, and then it would go through the work of finding all the factors for that, not multiples, all the factors for that. And so at the end, it would pump out a list of 1, 12, 2, 6, 3, 4. And because it wasn't super elegant or beautiful or a really well-made program, it listed all of them again, right? So then it said, all right, well, 4 and 3, 6 and 2, 12 and 1. And it popped out this entire list of all the multiples, of all the factors of the number that you input, and it just gave one big list of it, right? It considered 1 and 12 different from 12 and 1, even though we know that there's really the same factors. I'm going to bump this chair up a little bit. Okay. But the bigger issue that I have here than that is the fact that this is just one long list. And I guess, you just need to know that index 0 and index 1 is a pair of factors that go together. And then you need to know that index 2 and 3 is a pair of factors that go together. And similarly with 4 and 5, etc. But there's no real organizational way to show this, right? You just have to know, given the fact that this is the list, and we know it gives a list of pairs of factors, so that 0 and 1 go together, 2 and 3, 4 and 5 go together. But a nicer way to organize it or to think about it might be I have a list of pairs instead of just a list and the pairs happen to be next to each other. So instead, maybe I have a list of all the pairs like this, where I have a big list and I know my first pair is 1 and 12. And then my second pair would be 2 and 6. And my third pair would be 3 and 4. Fourth pair, 4 and 3. Let's do all of them because we're already almost there. 6 and 2. And then finally 12 and 1. And so this, so sorry about that squiggle bracket. This is kind of a little bit nicer, right? It's actually breaking up the pairs of factors into separate mini lists inside of a bigger list. Well, this is why it's called a 2D array, a two-dimensional array. Here it's just one list from index 0 all the way to the final index. Here I have my bigger list in the brackets, and each thing, and maybe I'll make these brackets blue, or, kind of draw over them again in blue. And then each item in the big list is a separate mini list. And then each mini list has two items, right? Because it's a pair. It has the first factor and the second factor. And this little mini list has the first factor and the second factor. So instead of having a single list as a one-dimensional array, this is what we call a 2D array, where it's a list of lists. And, it can be held like this and we're going to get to it eventually, I promise you, when I made my turtle game, when we were practicing if and while loops and, if statements and while loops and stuff like that, control flow of a program, I ended up using a 2D array to make a grid, right? Because a 2D array, instead of just being a list of, all the items in the list, all the mini lists are 2 in length, I can make a 2D array, and this is kind of starting to get why it's 2D because you have two dimensions, of here is all of my boxes in the first column. Boom, 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 boom. And then I can have all of my boxes in the first row in the second row. And now I've got over here and then over here, and your lists inside can be longer, and you can imagine it as a grid, which is why it's called a 2D array. As we see examples of that in programming, you'll see where this gets to be going. But let's start talking about one extra little thing over here before we close this video out. I want this to be a relatively short video too, because I expect a lot of people have not done, by the time I post this, the full program of list of multiples. And so I'm giving you a chance to keep working on that, along with this slightly shorter video. No programming in this video. So here's the way this works, right? Sorry for that little tangent. Let's get back to our original, the first 2D array that we've seen. So this big squiggle list works like a regular list. The first item, this first list, is my first index. It is at index 0. The second list at index 1. Index 2, 3, 4, and 5. So here are my 6, because I started at 0, mini lists, all the different factors of 12 where I'm saying the order matters. Inside of the bigger list, every item in the bigger list is a mini list, right? And those mini lists work the same way as any list. So this has an index of 0, and this has an index of 1 inside of its own list. This, you reset it again. This is a brand new list inside over here. So this is going to have another index of 0 and an index of 1, except this index of 0 is living inside of the index 1 over here. Starting to get kind of crazy, right? Index of 0, index of 1, it goes along the rest of the way, right? It works the same way. It's just a list inside of a list. Now, when we come back to this two-dimensional thing, this also kind of comes back to when we were doing the graphics before. Another reason why, when you're looking graphically a lot of times on computers, the origin 0, 0 starts in the top left corner instead of the bottom left corner, because I have my list of lists. This is the first list, and so it has index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then this bigger list that holds all these individual lists and rows, this is the first list, so it's at index 0. This is the second list at index 1. The third list at index 2 over here. And so the index 0, 0 would be right over here. If I wanted the index like 1, 2, I'd go to index 1 and index 2. That would be right over here. Or depending on the way you write it in your program, it might be, the opposite, where I have 1 in this way and then 2 in that way. It depends on how you write the code to make this grid. Though because we like X first, that's why I chose this one this way. So that kind of shows that as well. So just, getting you prepped. Next week, we're going to be talking about 2D lists and 2D arrays in Python itself. But the idea, just to get it in your head before we actually start doing it in Python, is that it is a list of lists. So I have a list that holds on to, in itself, little lists. And as we keep moving with this concept, you can start making a grid system, which is what it's a two-dimensional grid, which is why it's called a 2D array, because I have a list of lists. Again. That's gonna be it, I think. Right? Before we get to the turtle program, we'll make a list of multiples, or list of factors, not multiples, as a 2D array. And then, let me see, what are we going to do after that? We'll make it as a 2D array. Maybe we'll fix it. We'll make it fancy. That might be an optional one where we don't repeat, right? Once I see 1, 12, 2, 6, 3, 4, and I see 4 again, dunzo. Maybe we'll do that. That'll make it look kind of ugly, but we can do it. And then I think we start getting to the turtle program. Yeah, then we start getting to the turtle program. Alrighty, that's it for today's lesson. Finish the full program of list of multiples, multiple list, whatever, list of multiples, I think, even though that's also named incorrectly. That's going in as an assessment grade because, everything's been like pass or fail so far. We're a month into it. We gotta get to it. Sorry for people that are watching this that aren't in my class. Yeah. Okay. Bye.